guys, it's Amy. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you're all having a wonderful day as always. So before we even get into anything, if you guys could please do me a huge favor and like and share this video. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe also. Coming up on about a year now with this channel, Mind Squash, and I really want to start to grow it now. I hadn't been focusing on that so much before, but now I'm really getting into this. I really like doing it. I love how you guys have been supporting me. So if you could continue to support me and get everybody else you know to support me, and we can grow this channel, that would be awesome. So as I've been doing recently, I am going to do another video about one of the women that was interviewed in the Iowa women's prison documentary. On my channel, Mind Squash, I already have Cheyenne Harris, which many of you have already seen. That video has been there since before the documentary. And I just did Judy White maybe about a week ago, so that one's there too. Now we're gonna move on to the next lady, and here we go. So today, we're gonna talk about the next woman that was interviewed in the Iowa prison documentary. So we're gonna talk about Ruthann Veal. A lot of people talked about her because she was the one who was charged as an adult for murder and sentenced to life without the possibility of parole when she was only 14 years old. And a lot of people were upset about that because 14 is very young to have your entire life taken away from you and, you know, force you to stay in prison until you actually die. Because Iowa, there's no question about it. You don't get a choice. If you kill someone and you get charged with first-degree murder, you're going away for your entire natural life. This isn't a 25, it's natural life. So there's no questions about it. So for it to be a 14-year-old girl who committed the murder, it's kind of surprising, especially back then. We didn't do that. They were charged as juveniles. They were sent to juvenile hall. Is that what they call it still? I'm old. Juvenile prison. And they stayed there, presumably got out at 21. Otherwise, when they turned 21, they moved on to adult prison for an extended amount of time, but not for life. So people were bothered by that. They didn't like the fact that this woman was still in there at the age of 40 years old. And actually, I do want to point out, not that it makes that much of a difference, but she was 14 when she committed the crime. On June 15th of 1993, she committed this murder, and she was 14 years old. She was only 3 weeks shy, give or take, of her 15th birthday. Her birthday is actually July 20th. Of 1978. So she would have been turning 15 very soon after. And she was sentenced in May of 1994. So at that point, she was 15 going on 16. So she would have actually been technically sentenced when she was about to turn 16. However, she would have been in prison awaiting her trial, presumably. And she was in a group home at the time that this happened. You would think that she probably got a public defender, but that's actually not the case. She had a very good attorney. This man was a very well-respected attorney in Iowa, and her mother got this attorney for her, and she had since complained that, you know, she ruined her life by using all of her money, all of her savings, everything she had to try to save her daughter's life. But I mean, really, you can blame your daughter for that. So actually, if you guys could do me a quick favor before we get into the full story of this, we're about to get into that now. Please head on down to comments. If you could hit up the comments and answer one question for me right now before I get started with the full story. And I want to know, are you upset about the fact that Ruthann Veal was charged as an adult and sentenced to life without parole when she was only 14 years old? Technically 15 years old. Let me know what you think in the comments before we get started. And so then after we've gone through the whole story of what I have found to have actually happened, we can see if you changed your mind at all or if you still feel the same way. Because these women were interviewed by Stacey Dooley in this documentary, and it seemed to me that they probably all downplayed their crime at least a little bit, I would imagine. Not to mention that it's not like we would get a full story because they weren't talked to long enough to get a lengthy story of what happened. It was just, you know, like Ruthann Veal, she said she went to this woman's house when she was running away. I think she said she was running away from the cops. She went to this woman's house and the woman helped her. She gave her orange juice. I don't know if she said specific. She gave her something to drink. And she was being very nice to her. They talked about the fact that this woman was being very nice to her. And Ruthann said that, she kind of just freaked out. She was scared that the cops were going to get her. So she just started kind of freaking out. And she just grabbed a knife from the kitchen and started stabbing this woman. And she ended up stabbing this woman to death. And I hate to say this woman. This woman's name, the victim, was 66-year-old Catherine Polly Haynes, a wonderful woman. She had kids. She had grandkids. She was, she was a 66-year-old woman. She still had a lot of life left. But at the same time, when you think of it as a 66-year-old woman, she's also not that young. When you think of different crimes, hearing about a child or an older elderly person getting hurt, it just seems worse because it's harder for them to defend themselves against a predator. So 66-year-old Catherine Polly Haynes was murdered by Ruthann when Ruthann stabbed her many, many times. So she did explain that that's what happened, but she made it sound like, she went to this woman's house because she was being chased. So she went in there for help. And then she kind of got scared because she thought the cops were going to come get her, and she just lost it and attacked her. So that's her story. So let me tell you what I have found to be what happened. And, it has similarities, but there's more to it than that. She didn't know this woman. She never said she knew her. They were not related in any manner. There was no friendship. They weren't neighbors, nothing like that. Ruthann had been living in a group home. Mind you, it was because she'd had so many issues already. At 14, she had already had 11 arrests. 5 of them were of assault. She had at least 5 violent assaults on her record when she was 14 years old. So she was not doing well. The attorney general at the time said that, they tried with her, but there was no getting through to her. They couldn't do anything to get her to start acting right. So then when this happened, this was a person that was just violent. So it went beyond a kid that made a mistake. This was a girl that had made a lot of mistakes, and this was kind of the final straw. So that was their thought process on charging her as an adult, but also because of the severity of the crime. So that day, June 15th of 1993, Catherine was killed sometime between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. But it was definitely, based on what I understood, it sounded like it was definitely in that nighttime period somewhere. So I would say between 6 p.m. and maybe 12 that night. What they specifically said was 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. was the range of her time of death. So Ruthann had ran away from her group home, and she was running from the cops that were trying to get her. And this was like he was chasing after her in and out of backyards, over fences. This was like some Ferris Bueller type shit right here. They were on a chase. This was an on-foot chase, by the way, on-foot chase. She was running from them. And, so they were running through the streets, through the backyards, and then she finally went into a backyard and into the garage of someone's house, which happened to be Catherine Haynes. And she got away from the cops. The cops couldn't get her. He couldn't find her. He gave up. So she went from the garage into the woman's house. She broke into the house. And actually, Catherine Haynes was not even home when she got there. The house was empty. So if she wanted to, she could have stolen whatever she needed to, and she could have left. But no, Catherine came home. She had been actually spending time with one of her friends, a neighbor nearby, and the neighbor said that when they walked back to the house, she remembers seeing the front door and she remembered the back door had been open earlier that day. So I don't know if that necessarily means anything other than to say that she didn't have to actually break in. But Catherine went into her house. She finds this girl, Ruthann, in her house. Big surprise there. Someone's broken into her house, basically. And, I know you think, okay, you get scared by a 14-year-old girl that's at your house. First of all, it's a stranger. You're going to walk in your house, you're going to see a stranger, you're going to be a little freaked out regardless of this person. But this was not a little 14-year-old girl that was like, 4 feet tall or what have you. She was big. I don't know if you remember in the documentary, she mentioned that she knew that her size was intimidating to other people. So she used that. She wasn't kidding. At 14 years old, going on 15, she was 6 feet tall and between 180 and 200 pounds. She was a big person. So this was a decent sized person, stranger, in her house. And she was still nice to this girl. She gave her a cup of orange juice. I guess she tried to get her a taxi. And she did end up ordering a taxi because a cab showed up at like 11 o'clock, a little after 11 at the house. And he said he was told they didn't need him anymore. And it was Ruthann that told him to go ahead. He saw her kind of from like here up, kind of part of the torso and the head. So I guess he didn't accurately describe her. So she used that as one of her reasons that it wasn't her. But we'll get into that later. And actually, I'm going to probably do a second video on this because there's too much to talk about. So this video is going to be about what happened, and the next video is going to be about the appeal and the victims' families and whatnot. So Catherine was really nice to her, tried to help her out. All I could find on her was a really wonderful person. She was a retired librarian from Northwest University, I believe it was. Just a really wonderful person. And I couldn't find anything bad about her. I mean, not that I was really looking for anything bad on the victim, but she just seemed like a really good person. So who knows, was she trying to help her out because she just genuinely wanted to help her out? I think that was part of it. I also think that she was just trying to also help herself. She wanted to save herself. She wanted to be nice to this girl, get her out of the house, you know? I'll call a cab for you so you can get the fuck out of my house because you're not supposed to be here. But I'm sure she was very nice about it. Ruthann said this woman was very nice to her. But what happened to this woman was not nice at all. And it doesn't sound to me like she just freaked out because she attacked this woman. She beat her severely. So she had a busted lip. Her lip was split. She had 4 broken ribs. 4 broken ribs. I got in a car accident and I had a fractured rib. You know how much effort it takes, how much pressure and attack that it's going to take to break 4 ribs? And then her skull was fractured. And they found her in the hallway of her house. So she was beaten, but not just that. She also had been stabbed 23 times. 23 times Ruthann Veal stabbed Catherine Polly Haynes. She stabbed her in the back, she stabbed her in the neck, and she stabbed her in her face. And it looked like Catherine put up a bit of a fight too. So good for her. Good for her putting up a fight. I hope that girl had marks on her. Supposedly she ended up later having bruises on her arms, and fake fingernails popped off. One of them was actually in the house as evidence. So that's good. Good for her wearing some shitty ass nails to get her caught. She also had some footprints from her boots that matched up with hers perfectly. And so there was some evidence there. She also had been wearing some light colored clothes. So they ended up obviously having blood on them, which is, by the way, is a weird situation because from what I gathered, she wore these like white shirt and yellow pants. So she had light colored clothing on, and obviously she's going to have blood all over it, right? But then she did end up going and meeting up with friends, so they would have had to seen her all bloody. She didn't change clothes until a while after, as far as I understand. But anyway, after she had beaten 66-year-old Catherine Haynes, stabbed her 23 times, I guess Catherine actually managed to stay alive for a while. But Ruthann was off doing her own thing. She ended up staying there for a while, making a bunch of phone calls, which were obviously related to who she called, that were all people that she knew. And then, before she left the house, stealing Catherine's car and credit cards, before she left the house with her stuff, she ripped the phone out of the wall. It seemed like she basically just wanted to make sure that Catherine, who was bleeding to death on the floor there, wasn't able to find a way to get to the phone and call for help. So she didn't accidentally kill someone because she freaked out. The woman was still alive. She could have still, after she calmed down, she could have tried to help this woman, but she didn't do that. Instead, she used her phone to make phone calls. While she lay there dying, she made phone calls. She got rid of the phone, ripped the phone out of the wall so she couldn't use it, took her credit card, took her car, and she took off. And she ended up meeting up with some of her friends. I ended up telling her friend, I did something bad. I killed this woman. And then they actually were at her friend's grandmother's house, and the story about the murder came up on TV, and they were talking about it, and I guess the grandma ended up figuring it out, and she told them to get the fuck out of her house. Makes sense. Her granddaughter's friend is there, and she's apparently murdered someone viciously. I can't even imagine how that would be. But they left there. She ended up taking her friends on a joyride in this car. They drove over to a couple of different towns in Iowa, went on a shopping spree using the credit card. She got a bunch of new clothes. Her friends got new clothes, new shoes. And then when they realized that people were out looking for them, she decided to, ditch the car in a parking lot somewhere, I believe it was, or on a street somewhere. And she threw the credit cards and whatnot in a random garbage can somewhere. She had changed out of those clothes into her new clothes, and she threw her clothes in a bush, which I don't understand that. Why would you ever hide your bloody crime scene clothes in a bush? Someone's going to find them. That doesn't make any sense to me. But regardless, I guess in 93, you don't know what they're going to be able to figure out anyway. And she was a kid. She was a freaking kid. But my question would be regarding the clothes. She's got bloody clothes on. She has to change those clothes at some point or another, because I can't imagine, or cover them up somehow, because there's no way she's going to like the mall and whatnot, walking around with bloody clothes. She had to have changed at some point. So I would imagine her friend must have given her clothes. I'll have to look into that for the next video. But yeah, that's basically what happened. It doesn't sound like she accidentally killed anybody and felt bad about it. This seems like something that she was okay with. She did it without any conscience, and then stole her car and went around buying a bunch of stuff with her credit card, joyriding with her friend. Yeah, she didn't seem to care. She was arrested 2 days after she did it, so, they quickly apprehended her, so that was good. She ended up going to trial, and at the trial, she pleaded not guilty, and she said she did not do this. So she did not admit anything. Actually, I take that back. She said, because they already had proof that she had used the phone and whatnot. So she admitted that, yes, she had been to the house, she had been given a glass of orange juice, and she had stolen the car and the credit card, but that she wasn't the one that was the murderer. So she was trying to put it off on one of her friends. And her friends did end up having to testify, and we will get into that in the next video, talking about the trial and then the appeal and all this other stuff. If you just think about what this poor woman went through, it's terrifying. And we know that Ruthann is a liar now. I mean, mind you, she lied when she was 15 at her trial, but we know she's a liar because we know that she committed this crime. She has since admitted it completely. So we know that she blatantly was lying at her trial, and for years from that day. And she has had so many issues in prison, and not from a really long time ago either. In 2015, she got into trouble again in the prison because she tried to set up some kind of like credit card fraud. She had been emailing back and forth, because they have email there. They call it O-mail. But she had email there, and she was emailing back and forth with someone supposedly who used to be in prison with her. And they were coming up with a plan to get Ruthann a credit card under her information and spend a bunch of money on it, because then when they didn't pay it, and they asked her about it, she could say, it wasn't me, because I was in prison, so somebody must have done it, somebody else must have done that. So she was trying to set up a credit card scam. And she also was wanting her friend, the person she was emailing with, to put her on Craigslist to be a sugar baby or something like that. So she was basically just trying to scam people out of money any way she could. And that was back in 2015. So she doesn't sound like a great person, and it's just a really terrible story. So that's the story, from what I understand, of what happened the day that she committed this horrible murder, and why she went to jail for her life. And now she is in prison for life, but she is in prison with the chance of parole. So she keeps going in front of the parole board to get out. And I'm going to talk about this more in the next video, but I just want to mention one thing that I find unbelievable. The daughter of Catherine Haynes goes to these parole hearings every time, because she wants to make sure this woman stays locked up. She says she's actually scared when she sees her. She said that she couldn't believe that at these parole hearings, they're not talking to her about how she feels, if she's guilty or not, what she thinks about this crime. They don't talk to her about the crime. They talk to her about how she'll succeed outside of prison. So they're not saying you can't get out because you're an awful person and you can't be trusted in society and you might be dangerous to society. No, she is being asked, hey, are you going to be able to balance a checkbook? Do you know how to cook for yourself? Can you get a job? If I was the daughter, I would be really angry about that. I would be pissed, and she is pissed. She did talk about how angry that made her, and why the hell are you asking her these ridiculous questions when she murdered my mother? I can't even imagine how that would feel. The woman had kids, the woman had grandchildren, and you just took her life away like that. So that's the story of what Ruthann Veal did. And we have lots more to come with regards to the trial, and particularly the family, what the family has had to deal with, and with all the hearings and the appeal. There's a lot on appeal, so we have a lot to do with that. But that's going to be next. So, like I said in the beginning, you told me earlier, hopefully you commented earlier in the video, letting me know what you thought, how you felt about her getting life in prison at such a young age. Now that you have more of the story, hopefully I told it well. I know I went around in circles a little bit, but now that you have the story of what really happened and how brutal it was, I would love to know if your mind has changed. So do you now, after watching the video, think that Ruthann should have gotten life in prison without the possibility of parole at the age of 14, going on 15? Do you think that was okay? So let me know in the comments. Let me know what you thought before. Let me know what you thought after. I want to know if anything changed. I have to say, in my opinion, and I'm sure you guys are someone's gonna have a problem with it. Please don't comment yelling at me about my opinion. Often do not agree with my opinion, but you can say you don't agree with it and that this is what you think. Don't send me comments bitching me out, telling me I'm stupid, because that's just gonna get deleted. Because I'm sick of people saying crap to me like that for no reason. It's an opinion, and don't say it to other people in the comments either. If you guys start battling each other, come on, just be. I want it to be a discussion, but I don't want it to be an argument. The whole point of this channel is to be able to discuss these different cases, different opinions, and come up with more answers. And that does happen when we talk to each other, but we don't need to yell at each other. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. In my opinion, I think she committed a horrible crime, and I think she continues to be a difficult person, and I don't think she has had a chance to become a better person. Luckily, I mean, I gotta say, luckily for her, she is in that prison where they try to help you out, because being in prison since you're 14, 15 years old, you're growing up in prison, so you're not learning ideals and values that you should from a loving family. But at the same time, I mean, what kind of family did she really have? It doesn't sound good. I mean, she was in group home. She was always getting in trouble. And that's a lot of the reason, too. This wasn't her only offense. She had a lot of other offenses prior to that. She had 11 offenses. 5 of them, like I said, were assaults. So I think they had reason to put her away for life. And now they're going to continue having parole hearings to see if she's doing better. And hopefully they try to find out if she's a better person, not a better homemaker, because that's just bullshit if you ask me. And that's my opinion. Let me know what yours is in the comments. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Please try to help me boost my channel up a little bit. Like I said in the beginning, now I'm really trying to grow the channel. It's been a year. It's time to really start pushing my channel. I think it would be awesome. I'm really having fun doing this with you guys. And I hope you all stick around. And I hope we get this channel really way up there, you know? I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time, where we will continue talking about Ruthann and her appeals, and also there's some information about her brother. He also is not doing so good. So I'll see you next time. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great day. Bye. Thank you. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much.